I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the expansion of Islam after the death of Muhammad. So Muhammad never named a successor, which caused some issues after his death because there was a little bit of a struggle between his followers over who should become the next caliph, which was a word that meant successor or deputy. You might sometimes also hear it pronounced caliph. The man who became the caliph after Muhammad was Abu Bakr, who was a close associate of his and a devout follower of Islam. There was a series of men known as the rightly guided caliphs who were all sort of in line to succeed him. But again, this wasn't a line of succession that Muhammad set up. This was sort of decided amongst the other leadership of Islam after Muhammad's death. And the rightly guided caliphs all knew Muhammad, and they used the Quran and Muhammad's words and deeds as guides for their own actions as leaders. And they would be, of course, both spiritual leaders as the heads of the religion and also political leaders as the empire of Islam continued to expand. So as the empire expanded, a lot of different events took place. So first we have Abu Bakr, who was able to go out and conquer all of the Arabian Peninsula. And then Umar, who followed Abu Bakr, was able to add Syria and Egypt to the empire. And then Uthman and Ali continued to expand the empire until it stretched all the way from the Atlantic Ocean in the west to the Indus River in the east. So the empire ended up looking something like this map, where you can see it covered much of Africa, Western Asia, and Spain, parts of Southern Europe, and Central and Eastern Europe. One of the reasons the Muslims had so much success in expanding their empire was because they had strong armies that they were able to organize against enemies who were not very well organized. And on top of that, they treated the people they conquered quite well. Some of the people they conquered had been subject to Byzantine rule, to Sassanid rule, and those were groups that persecuted Christians and Zoroastrians and other faiths. So the Quran, since it forbade forced conversion, really encouraged Muslim leaders to respect other religious traditions. In fact, Christians and Jews were also highly revered in many parts of the empire because they were considered people of the book, which was a term Muhammad had used to describe them. And that term, people of the book, comes from the fact that both the Jews and the Christians had a holy book. Of course, the Torah for the Jews, the Bible for the Christians, and so that's how they were sort of identified. And of course, Muslims would be people of the book as well because they have the Quran. So even though there was a lot of expansion going on, a lot of success, it doesn't mean that there weren't any sort of conflicts within the Muslim empire. So Ali became the caliph after Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman, excuse me. He was Muhammad's son-in-law, and a lot of people thought he should have been the first caliph because he had the closest relationship, a familial relationship with Muhammad, being married to Muhammad's daughter. So, but there were a lot of people who did not think that, and they actually conspired to assassinate Ali. And at the end of that turmoil, a family came into power called the Umayyads, and they sort of seized power and did away with any sort of representative government that the Muslims were starting to develop. The Umayyads also moved the capital of the empire from Mecca, home of Muhammad, to Damascus, which was their home base. Now, the conflict that arose between Ali's supporters and the other Muslims who had originally supported Abu Bakr came to be known as the split between the Sunni and the Shia. The Sunni were the people who did not think that Ali should have been Muhammad's successor, so these were the ones who ultimately would have supported Abu Bakr, but they also did not resist Umayyad rule because, of course, the Umayyads were the ones behind the conspiracy to assassinate Ali. So the Sunni followed kind of the Abu Bakr and that lineage of caliphs. And then the Shia were literally the party of Ali. And they believed that all caliphs should be descended from Ali. Since Muhammad didn't have any blood descendants of his own, they looked to Ali's family to provide that lineage. The split between Sunnis and Shiites, as they're known today, still exists today, with the vast majority of Muslims around the world identifying themselves as Sunnis and a minority being Shiites, although in some countries Shiites do make up the majority of the population in specific regions, mostly in Western Asia. Now, after the Umayyads, another family came into power, and they were the Abbasids, and they took over. Their dynasty kind of arose in the year 750 when they claimed the power and the leadership in the Empire of Islam. The Umayyads fled to Spain, so they abandoned their capital city in Damascus, were kind of driven out there, driven across North Africa, and finally into Spain, where they actually ruled for several hundred more years. And the Abbasids moved the capital to Baghdad, which is in modern-day Iraq, because that was their home base, and it became a great center of learning and culture for Muslims. Now in Spain, the city of Cordoba became kind of the Umayyad center of learning and culture. So the two cities that flourished during this period, one under Umayyad control and one under Abbasid control, were Baghdad and Cordoba.